Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean. Sorry for the poor audio quality lately. Again, I've been trying out how to use a tablet to try to do some mobile recording. And my headset's still, the mic is still not good enough for what I want from it. And I've been trying to do this because I have, a local, one of my friends, most of my listening base is local. So I'd like to get a couple of my friends together, crack a few beers, and talk about guns and politics, because some of those conversations that we've had have been really good, and I think they're effective for, building community and talking about the 2A. What do I got for you today? So, basically in the political world, something of note for us to worry about, because there are neighbors to the north, is Colorado is looking at banning all assault weapons and all semi-automatics. And it looks like they have the votes to do it, and there's not much that they can do about it other than voice their opinion, the citizens of Colorado, that is, and say no. Okay. What happened in the Supreme Court? So the Cargo case, which is the bump stock case, was heard. I think that's a 50-50 shot of going either way. I think I've spoken about that on another New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union episode. What's interesting to me is I've seen a European gun show. It looks like their version of SHOT Show called IWA Enforce TAC. So what tactical that is. So what it is there's a lot of the gun tubers that have been over there, and it's kind of cool to see what they're showing the us from the United States. But one of the most disappointing things I saw was HK's releasing the HK39. And it's a derivative. It's basically the HK33, but in a 300 blackout. If you don't know what the HK33 is, it's a 5.56. It used to be called the Masada. Back in the day, it was something that was, hoped to be brought to fruition by, I think it was Armalite or one of the companies like that. They went defunct. Magpul picked up the Masada, tried to do something with it. They didn't get very far. HK saw it, did some tweaking to it, made a lot of improvements to the design, and they're producing the gun for European or military, well, specifically military or police, because HK doesn't believe in the, since HK is a German company, German law prohibits them from putting guns in certain places, the United States being one of them, unless they've been severely modified so that they can't have some of the feature set that originally made the gun cool. Now, why did I think the HK39 is cool? It's a 300 blackout. I could care less about the caliber. I'm not a huge fan of the caliber because I have AKs that will do the same ballistically, but the feature set is cool. Having a lot of the AR-18 style things that you can put a folding stock on it, since it doesn't require a buffer tube. What I'm more specifically interested in is that the lower itself had some features that I wish we could get in the United States. They're ambidextrous controls for the AR-15 style platform, but specifically, instead of being the tiny paddles or the tiny buttons that we have to deal with to let the bolt carrier group go home so that you can actually fire the next round with the last round hold open on them. These are actually wider and easier to get to. There's more interesting places for rail mounting, or accessory mounting, I should say, all using M-LOK. What's more telling about this HK39 is that it has multiple gas block settings, or a gas block setting for normal shooting rounds, so hypersonic rounds or normally sonic rounds, versus subsonic rounds. So it only had two positions on it, one for suppressed and one for unsuppressed normal rounds that you're going to be using. And that's so that it uses a short stroke gas piston system like the AR-18. And what HK has really started to really gravitate towards in the latter years lately with their new designs. If you look at the HK 416, 417, they modified the M4 and basically made it a short stroke gas piston. Now, there's some benefits to that. Mostly it has to do with full auto fire, and it has to do with the cyclic rate of the gun. But if you're a person like me, a Kalashnikov person, you actually like gas stroke pistons, long stroke or short stroke, because they're better for fouling. And that is something that goes without saying. But in the same vein that this is going on, I was watching M1 Grand Thumb. Dude knows his things about guns. We all know that. That's why we watch his stuff. He took a Freedom AR-15 upper, put it on a full automatic lower for an AR-15, and he went 6,000 rounds with it. And at the end of it, he had I would say this guy's an engineer, actually go through it and say what was the shortcomings of the gun. I'll save you the long and the short of it, but basically what he found after 6,000 rounds is that it had normal AR-15 wear and that the barrel didn't hold up as well as it should, meaning that the accuracy at 700 yards that M1 Grand was shooting at was above 3 MOA after full auto fire, their course of fire that they used for 6,000 rounds. Now, they were using AAC 77 grain pills, so bullets, that is. So I'm wondering if that didn't aid to the wearing of the barrel. But at the same time, it shows that the AR-15 is kind of universally good. If you can take a normal working person's gun, and it can go toe-to-toe for 6,000 rounds, most of your average shooters aren't going to get there. And most of us would replace barrels before that anyway, unless they're super high-end. The higher-end AR-15s tend to have better materials and better quality control. There is no free lunch in the 2A. So when someone's manufacturing something at a very good price for the average end user, you need to look at what they had to sacrifice to bring it to you at market there. And Grand talks about it. He sits there and he tells you, for the average person, this is probably okay, but this is something he wouldn't consider a go-to-war gun because it lost a little bit of its accuracy. And around the 5,000 mark, he noticed, and it was documented, that it started slowing down and wasn't actually cycling correctly. Now, I can speak to that a little bit because I've had a similar problem, and maybe it's something that Palmetto State Armory can address, is with my current AR-15 build, which uses a lot of Palmetto parts. I noticed that my gas rings were wearing way before time. I maybe got 500 rounds in before I replaced them because I did the normal test. And I spoke about this before, where you take the bolt carrier group and set it on a table, and if the bolt falls forward or the carrier falls forward and hits the table, it's time to replace the rings. And they had something similar with this, but they continued going, and it just became more of an issue. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, on the back of an AR-15 bolt, there are 3 gas rings that, because the bolt itself is the piston that causes the gun to cycle, so you want some of that gas to be held in there so that it will push the bolt and cycle the action correctly. If those rings wear out, it lends to the rifle being a little less reliable. Now, I've sensed, that's the only set of rings I've fired through my Palmetto State Armory, or I had to replace on my Palmetto State Armory. What's interesting about this is Grand Thumb brings up something that's kind of funny, but it's true, that anything you buy from Palmetto State Armory has a lifetime warranty on it. And he said, well, we could box this upper up and send it back and probably get it a brand new one, or have them replace all the parts that are worn on it. And he's correct. But if the Palmetto State Armory no longer exists because they're put out of business by the leftist, or the stuff really does hit the fan, what are you going to do? The actual reality is that it's an AR-15, and you can replace parts as needed from whatever you need. My WIC build, as I like to put it, isn't 100% Palmetto State Armory. I put a lot of funds in different places. One of them was in the bolt carrier group. So I was a little shocked to see that the bolt carrier group, part of the bolt carrier group is my BCG, is Palmetto State Armory. It's one of their nickel boron plated bolt carrier groups that's actually made by Toolcraft. I wasn't expecting the gas rings to go out as rapidly as they did, but again, that's something that I foresee it being a thing. Since then, I've gotten consistent cycling, I've gotten consistent ejection patterns, and I have no problems with it. And for my general purpose, and I've trained with it, and it's probably got about 3,000 rounds on it now, I've not had another issue with it. The biggest issue I had was I put ambidextrous mag release on it, and what was causing my mags to fall off when I had it on my web gear or on my training gear. And I took that off, and now I don't have that issue. And that was me trying to change something with probably a part that wasn't the highest end quality. That being said, the AR-15 isn't made for ambidextrous. Your average AR-15 isn't made for ambidextrous components, because there is fencing that was designed on the parts of the AR-15 for this reason, to not cause a magazine to just fall out, to not cause the last round hold open to slide forward instantly. You're going to have to use a little bit of force to do that, and the idea there is that it's actually you doing it and not the machine itself doing it. So I understand that. But as I watched the stuff, that video, I was pleasantly surprised at the groups he was getting at the beginning. And I can attest to that the beginning, even now, my groups are still pretty tight with 3,000 rounds on it, but I don't have access to a full automatic lower for my AR-15, nor do I want one. If there's one full auto I would like to have that was civilian, legal, and everything else, it'd be an MP5. And that's just because I could afford to feed it. I've shot MP5s that are full auto before, and they're pleasant to shoot. It would just generally be a good gun to have as a full auto gun. As far as the world melting down and us having to do as an SHTF type thing, shit hits the fan type thing, the more I think about it, the more I realize that the reality of the situation is you're probably, even at your best, not going to be able to exfil completely away. I mean, fires do happen, and you may have to leave for a little bit of time. But if you think you're going to just disappear and go off the grid, if stuff really does happen, you're kind of slipping into your PJs and you've drank some Kool-Aid, especially if you're not training as hard as you need to, physically, mentally. You need to do a lot of physical training to understand that you're not going to be able to carry 1,000 rounds of ammunition plus food and everything else. Water weighs a lot of weight to exfil and just go off grid. You may be able to do that for a limited time frame, but you're not going to be able to do that indefinitely. You're going to have to come to that reality at some point in time. And once you do, you realize that you're better off probably sheltering in place, getting with your neighbors, building that community, having the people you can surround you so that you can get food and water and do things as a collective. There's a reason why societies exist, and that's one of the reasons. In those larger cities, if things go down, if they're without power for a long time, if there's lots of mass rioting, they're the ones that are screwed. In us more rural communities, 40,000 below, we will have those people that are opportunists that never planned for anything and never could deal with an outage of any kind or mass event. But then there's a lot of us that have trained, and there's a lot of us that have prepped. If you think you're going to go get food with a gun right away, understand that most people don't survive their first gunfight. And surviving 2 is damn hard. That's that level of training you have to have. You also have to think about the mentality of what you're going to have to do to actually do that type of thing. Are you capable of it? Are you physically, mentally capable of doing those types of things, becoming a marauder, a killer? Most of us in the 2A community don't have that mentality. Let's just be honest. We're the ones that are trying to protect our communities. We're the ones trying to save our communities. That's why it's so heartbreaking to see these people, leftist, the current administration, go so hard and heavy against us, is because we wouldn't do that. We have this sense of honor that tends to bite us on the butt more often than not. And that's one of the things, Achilles heel of 2A people. We're in this great place where we actually get to experience our freedom and use our freedom to its utmost. And a lot of people won't do that. It's disheartening at sometimes, What else has been going on? I'm a big fan of checking out the weather. I was supposed to go this weekend to see my son launch his rocket, which I'm very proud of you, son, for building it. He built a rocket that was supposed to safely land a quail egg. I don't know why his teacher wanted him to use a quail egg. But I had to do something similar when I was in school, and this is part of his engineering class. Now, I'm a little disappointed in K-12s yet again, because he wasn't able to launch his because they couldn't figure out how to put the launching tube on it. He modeled his rocket after basically a rifle grenade. Okay, so I don't think the teacher knew that. Ballistically sound, the design would have absolutely been, because nothing would fly through the air like a rifle grenade. And putting a rocket on something that is built similarly would just give it longevity or give it more range. Now, this is a small device that he was trying to do, but I'm just disappointed that they took someone who had a lot of passion for this project and a lot of pride in this project and wouldn't let him continue on with it. But it was too windy this weekend for us to get to do that. His mama was going to, or bought a launcher, bought an additional quail egg so she could do this. And she was looking forward to taking our son out, our youngest son out, to show him how well his hard sweat and effort paid off. And it's just sad. But I put that squarely on teachers. That's one of the things that happened, something similar with my younger son. This type of hobby, the 2A hobby, the 2A lifestyle, the pew-pew life, as Colion Noir likes to say, has repercussions. And I'm not so sure that if someone didn't actually look at it a little bit, do a little bit of research, and saw that it was built off of and designed off of a weapon, that they probably were a little more hesitant at it. The simple fact is, the first time we ever made a rocket to go outside of our atmosphere, it was modeled off of a bullet from a 7.92 or an 8mm Mauser, and that was Wernher von Braun's V1. There's a reason why bullets are ballistically stable and aerodynamic. So it would make sense that you would take any kind of rocket, especially anything seriously, that you would build those types of devices after something that we know is a known quantity and can do something. But back to the longevity thing. I would recommend you keep some parts for your AR-15, a full bolt, rings, extractors, extractor springs, those types of things. You'll need them at one point in your life. Detents, it's just part of having a machine that you use. You keep spare oil filters and oil, and you do maintenance on your car. What's the difference when they are 15? Same thing goes for the Kalashnikov. The AK probably won't need as many parts replacement, but it's by and large not as accurate either. And it is not as well founded in Western society. You have to be a fan of the Kalashnikov. And if Western society ever melts down and I'm stuck in the United States, I've had to begrudgingly admit I'd probably take an AR-15 over a Kalashnikov because I could find the parts, find the ammunition, find the magazines a lot more rapidly than I could for an AK. So that's what I got for you tonight. I hope you had a great weekend. If you're in northwest New Mexico, it was pretty crappy. Nice for warm weather, warmth that is, but extremely bad in every other way. The wind was blowing 20 miles, 25 miles an hour plus. So there was no shooting. I wanted to do that. I wanted to launch my son's rocket. I wanted to take my motorcycle out. And I'm not a rider in the wind. I've decided that with my allergies the way they are and the wind being forced through my helmet or open face when I'm riding my other bike, that's not a good plan to ride without with the wind because it causes other issues. Like, share, subscribe. Most importantly, be great.